This is your host, Marisol, a freedom lifestyle consultant, bringing you an episode of Roaming the Now, where expat entrepreneurs, coaches, and mentors come together to give you a behind the scenes look at the real and raw experience of what it actually means to set out to a new country and build a life abroad. Hello, and welcome to Roaming the Now. This is your host, Marisol, and today I have Michael Multari, who lives in Colombia but is originally from the States. So, Michael, please feel free to tell us about your journey from the US to Colombia.
Good morning, Marisol. Thank you for having me. My journey started about 12 years ago when I came back to Colombia for the first time in over 30 years for my grandmother's 90th birthday party. And it was the first time the family that we were all together for, over 3 decades. And since then, I've been coming back pretty much regularly on a yearly basis. And 5 years ago, I decided that I wanted to make a permanent move to Colombia. And so at the time, I was director of admissions at an independent school in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Decided to sell everything I owned to move to Cali and to be closer to my family, to learn Spanish, and also to start a travel business, Todo Bien Colombia, where we support Americans who want to visit and experience this beautiful country.
Super cool. I love to hear that. I have a similar experience of packing all the belongings in a suitcase and let's go. So I'd love to hear from you. Like tell us more a little bit of what was that experience like to sell all your belongings and like we're moving to a new country and we're not coming back.
Right, right. Well, normally these types of things begin with it can be like challenging times. So after a divorce, I waited a couple of years and realized that, you know what, I want a new adventure in life. And and so what propelled me to do this was really trying to reconnect with family and also trying to figure out who am I? What do I want to do in life? I had a really great career in education as a teacher and an administrator. And so for me, trying something completely new, like business, setting up a business, going through that whole process, all of it was about learning and having fun and also experiencing something completely out of the ordinary. And that's what I was searching for.
Out of the ordinary. Okay. I love that definition because out of the ordinary can mean like so many different things. So when you're just thinking and feeling into your experience of creating this out of the ordinary lifestyle for yourself, like what would you describe as like a normal day to day for you that is now out of the ordinary that you probably would have never experienced if you would have stayed in the US?
For sure. I think, first of all, living in a brand new culture and the the things that we take for granted in the United States, especially when you're speaking your own language, right? I want to order cable. I want to order a pizza. I need to buy furniture. These things that we just don't even think about. All of a sudden, I had to think about, and I had to go through that experience of my Spanish is okay. Not I can order a coffee, I can ask for the bathroom, but to get 100 megs of internet service, that was a new experience. And so I think for me, one of the things I had to do quickly was to check my ego and realize that, hey, like this is part of the adventure. This is part of it. And there is a certain sense of isolation because you have to continuously put yourself out there in a new culture. If you don't, I don't know how successful you can be. But for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to check my ego at the door. I'm going to just be open to any new opportunity that comes up and embrace it. And by doing so, I weirdly enough, I had to embrace the child within, the curious one, the one who's always up for any type of adventure. And, 4 years in, almost 5, I still feel like it's brand new.
How beautiful. That's so cool. Like every day is a brand new adventure. And I love what you said about like your inner child and like the curiosity. So, and you have like such validity and the normal things that we take for granted and like, oh, I want to order a pizza or I want to get internet. Like it's a whole different situation and thing here in Mexico. I've experienced that, you know, fun fact, because where I first moved here, where I live in the mountains, like they didn't have, I now have fiber optic, but before I didn't, I had to get satellite. I had to call a month in advance to schedule the appointment so that they would be here before I moved here so that I would ensure I had internet like once I like moved in. And like, I think that's like where you just said, like checking your ego at the door. It's like, yeah, I have to be like, hey, I have to call a month in advance to get my internet installed. And that's okay because in the US, probably just call the same week and then someone's out there, right? Things move so much faster. And so I'd love for you to kind of just describe more of that experience of checking your ego, right? Because I feel like most people understand what that means and like, oh, check your ego, like you just put it to the side. But I would love for you to just kind of explain more of like, what does that look like, feel like actions that you take as like a coach?
For sure. So, like the first example or something that comes to mind quickly is this. I, as a former educator, someone who has a master's degree in the United States, that kind of quote unquote means something, right? You go to a social engagement, you go to someone's house, you go to a restaurant, and if you cannot articulate a thought or to participate in a conversation because you lack the words because your Spanish or your language is not that good, you realize that, man, all those degrees and all those years in education, they don't mean anything. And so by checking the ego, what you have to realize is that, you know what, you're no longer in your comfort zone. And I've realized my greatest growth occurred and occurs when I am in discomfort. And I welcome that. When I first moved here, I was kind of shy. My ego was like, oh no, just don't speak, don't experience anything, be safe, play it safe and small. And now I realize that no, that's not why I sold everything, left my career, left my friends, and moved here. And so that's what I mean by checking your ego. You have to put yourself out there and realize whatever you were in your other life in the States no longer is applicable in a new country.
Yeah, it's basically like you start from scratch, right? It's that new beginning, as you mentioned earlier, like starting that new identity, which can be really scary,
Yes.
because as you had mentioned, it's getting comfortable, like being uncomfortable. That's what I basically heard you say. And when you move abroad to a foreign country, that's literally the everyday experience. Every day, especially like I would say the first year, really just depends on, if you do have family or if you don't, wherever you are, you're uncomfortable. And so every day you wake up and you're like, hey, I need to go get groceries, but I don't speak the same language. And so
Yep.
I got to put myself out there and be uncomfortable. So, what would you say has been the most helpful for you to get comfortable being uncomfortable? Like that is the new normal lifestyle, the new day-to-day feeling and experience.
Yeah, I think for me, as a former educator, I came back to my roots, as a lifelong learner. So my goal each day is to learn something new, whether it's a word, whether it's an experience here, whatever it might be. It's like, okay, I want to learn something new. And I think for me, that's the exciting part. And so I changed the attitude from, oh boy, like this is hard with and scary, which it is, to like, okay, well, what can I learn? How can I grow from this? And I think this is going to sound really strange, but for me, the pandemic happened 7 months after I moved here. And so for 3 months, 4 months, and Colombia had one of the tightest restrictions in terms of getting outside. I didn't leave the apartment, only once a week where we were allowed to leave the apartment to go get groceries. And that was for the first 3 months. And so really like thinking about like, okay, what do I want this experience to be like? How do I want to come out of COVID? What do I want for myself? And I think you have to be really mindful of that and create that. Okay, what do I want? And that's kind of how I navigated these last 4 years.
Okay, so being mindful every day of what kind of experience do I want to like create for myself today.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. I love that. That's really where I talk a lot about how different the world would be if every day everyone woke up with a conscious intention of what is my intention for today? Which, what is my experience that I want to have today be? Or, how do I want to feel throughout my day? Or what do I want to do? Like intentions, intentions. I always say that the world would be such a different place if we were waking up and having an intention with how we wanted to go about the day.
And I love how you describe that, Marisol, because every morning, and I found this, and I started this during COVID. I do wake up and I plan out my day before I get out of bed. I do create this intention. What do I want to do? Like go through it. And so if I envision it prior, then I feel like, okay, what would success look like? Right. Okay. And during that time, it was like, all right, I'm going to do a workout because I can't go out. So I'm going to do something inside, or I'm going to read a book today, or whatever that might be. But I think you're absolutely correct in having an intention. And now, quote unquote, post COVID, I still do it, and I feel a sense of accomplishment. I feel a sense of success when I envision what the day is going to look like. And it also, I don't know if you have the same experience, but it's almost empowering to create that prior to getting out of bed.
Yeah, definitely. Like when you realize that you have like full agency is like the word that comes to mind for me. You have every day when you wake up in the morning, you have full agency to create the experience that you want to live. And I do have a lot of gratitude because I know that living in Mexico, it's a lot more accessible, or as for you living in Colombia, like it's a lot more accessible to wake up and be like, what kind of day do I want to have today? And
Absolutely.
And I realized that, where I live, like in the Pueblo Mágico, they wake up with the same thing. Like obviously everyone has their day-to-day responsibilities, they tend to our house and everything, but people here are living the day. Like, hey, I'm waking up. I'm gonna spend time with my grandkids, gonna spend time with my family. I need to go, see the senora down the street and get this kind of vegetables. There's not really that how do I put this? That sense of like rush or just like waking up on autopilot. There is a lot of intentionality, mindfulness, consciousness, like whatever you would want to call it, um, for people who I've noticed are living abroad.
Yeah, and I the other part of that of what you just said, which was great, is that living abroad, you realize there's more than one way of living, right? In the US, and I'm sure here too, or where you're at in Mexico, everyone has this idea of what life is like. And so for me, one of the gifts, the many that I received living abroad is I get to realize, hey, there's more than one way of living. And which ways do I want to incorporate in my daily life? Which Colombian ways do I really that resonate with me? What are the US ways of life that really resonate? And so my life has become that much more enriched, and I'm really, as you said, I'm really grateful for that experience as well.
Yeah, it's definitely an eye opener when you realize there's not really one right way to live. There's many multiple ways, and it's kind of just finding which one fits you.
Exactly. Exactly. Well said.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. So thank you for sharing your experience and like your most highlighted lessons from being abroad. I definitely can like sense like the teacher, that part of your identity that was a part of you in the United States has definitely come along for the journey, as well as your inner child. So it's like every day is an adventure. You're learning, you're growing, and getting comfortable being uncomfortable, which is like we're thinking about learning. Like that's all part of the process, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So, in closing this out, what advice would you have to share with someone who is curious about, starting a business and then moving abroad?
Yeah, great question. I think one, um, be prepared to have the veil of your beliefs stripped away. Um, and I think having that open mind is extremely important and say, you know what, I'm going in this as like the mold, right? Instead of coming in as a full person, I know exactly what I want. I know exactly who I am. Be prepared and open to new ideas, new ways of thinking, new ways of living. I think that's extremely important. And that goes with checking ego at the door. Know that there are going to be moments of like questioning, like, oh man, there's going to be moments of fear. And know that that's all natural and it's all part of it. I think as a coach and becoming a coach these last few years, has really helped me understand that, hey, like I'm the one who's responsible for how I show up in the world every day. And so if I'm going to do something new, like example, get work done on my car, I need to be patient with myself. I need to be patient with the people I'm working with, knowing that I can't articulate all the words that I need. But if I'm kind, if I'm in generous of spirit, and I know that they too are kind and generous of spirit, then I think like the experience that you have is just that much more rewarding and fulfilling.
Yes, I love that. Kindness is a two-way street, right? Kindness for
Yeah,
yourself, kindness for the other person involved. And if we were all a lot more kind to each other, I'm sure things would like move so much more smoothly, right?
absolutely. And on the business front, I think, also learning that what we're used to in the United States, in terms of business may not be the norm here. For example, and this one I think we can relate to is having days off. In the United States, I believe there are 9 federal holidays. In Colombia, there are 18. Okay, and so there's a lot more leisure time here. And so, like, if you want to get certain things done in, say, certain months, like December, you can forget about that because there's so many holidays and time off. That's completely different. So I had to recalibrate my thoughts and say, okay, well, December might not be the time to get things done. So I need to wait or do it earlier. So I think starting businesses is just look at the calendar and have an idea of, what are the expectations in the new country that you're wanting to live? Yeah.
Yes. Business is done so differently. So differently. I'll say that here in Mexico, basically I learned like if it's not done before the 12th, which is like the day of Guadalupe, like it's not getting done until the new year.
Yep. Exactly. No, and like, but how cool is that, right? Like, that's so different, and it doesn't make it better. It doesn't make it worse. It's just different, and I think embracing those differences is has been again another gift that I've been given.
Yeah. And I definitely think on the idea of it being a gift, like I have noticed that because there's so much leisure time, like basically south of the border, Mexico or even South America, people are a lot more relaxed and a lot more nice. And they're just a lot more warm and friendly. And I notice that every time I switch through like the borders, like if I need to go back to the US. Um, people are just a lot more warmer and kinder. And I think about, well, yeah, like let's take a look at the lifestyle. Like there's more time for leisure, there's more time for living your life. And when I cross over the border, I'm back in the territory where it's a rat race. Like every day is go, 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 go.
Yep. No, that's
Yeah.
very true. I think, we can get into a lot of different avenues with that statement. And I just, again, I think remaining neutral and just looking at it through growth opportunity. Like what do you want? Right? Like for people who are considering moving, like what do you want for yourself? What are your the quote unquote goals and intentions that you were talking about? I think would be really wise to have those prior to making that move abroad.
Yes. Intentions, goals, whatever fits you if you're thinking of moving abroad. I definitely recommend having those. I'm someone who lives more by intentions. Goals is not the word for me. I don't know why, but I have intentions, and the intention is what's the experience I'm wanting to live. And right now, my experience is really focused on just living in the present moment. So, with that
Yep.
being said, thank you, Michael, so much for sharing your story. And if anyone is interested in getting in touch with you or, exploring your travel business, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. My travel business name is Todo Bien Colombia. We have a great website. We're on Facebook and Instagram. And then my coaching, multaricoaching.com. If you're interested in, uh, yeah, however I can support you, whether it's as a traveler or as a coaching client, I would love to be there for you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that information. Now you all know how you can stay in touch with Michael. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story on Roaming the Now. This is Marisol, your host, signing off until our next episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Until next time, make sure you check out the links in the description. You can join my newsletters where I send you tips and tricks on how to build a lifestyle of freedom. So, until our next episode, have fun, live in the present moment, and enjoy roaming the now wherever you are in the world.